This story took place a couple years ago. On the last day of school before spring break, my friends and I decided to fly down to Miami, Florida. So the next day, all four of us boarded the plane to Florida. The flight took 4 hours. When we arrived, we decided to get a cheap Airbnb for all of us to stay. When we first walked into the rented Airbnb, it looked really clean and normal. Either way, we all set our stuff down and went to the beach. Later that night, we all decided to go out to the local bar and have some fun all night. At some point during the night, I decided that I had enough and I wanted to walk back to the Airbnb. By this time, I already had a couple of drinks, so I was kinda tired. On my way home, I thought I was seeing a guy following me, but I was not sure. When I reached the rented house, I quickly made my way upstairs and fell asleep. Next thing I knew, I was awakened by the front door opening. I just assumed it was my friends coming back from the bar, so I decided to try to go back to sleep. That was when I heard a loud scream coming from downstairs. I sat up in my bed, slowly realizing that the noise did not come from my friends. I ran to my bedroom door and locked it. A couple minutes later, I started to hear scratching on the other side of the door. At this point, I was terrified. I decided to call the police, so I yelled at the man to leave. This only made it worse. The man started frantically turning the doorknob and slamming into the door. After 2 minutes of trying to get inside the room, he was unsuccessful and ended up leaving the rented house. When the police finally arrived, they searched the entire house, but the man was never found. The cops told me to call back if anything happens again. At that exact moment, my friends finally came back to the place we were staying at. They all looked scared and concerned. They told me that on the way back from the party, there was a strange man that approached them. The man seemed insane, as he gave them a weird stare. Before leaving, the man also mentioned the address to the Airbnb that we were staying at. When I heard this, I told them the story of how the man broke into the Airbnb. Together, we all came to the conclusion that the same man that broke into the rented house approached my friends. It was the first day of spring break, and my friend and I wanted to go stargazing. Today also happened to be one of the hottest days of the year, with lots of clear skies. After packing our tents and sleeping bags, we headed out on the 1-hour journey towards the woods. We looked online for the best spot to see the stars, and we ended up finding a spot near the woods, where there was not a lot of lights from the city. Near the woods, there was also a huge bike trail, so my friend and I made sure to bring our bikes, so that we could pass the time. As we were riding down the path, we happened to stumble across a large shed near the woods. This was very strange, but since we were teenagers at the time, we decided to go explore the shed. At the door of the shed, we looked inside, but we could not see much since it was pitch black. I ended up finding a broken window, so we climbed inside the shed and looked around. Inside, there was a few pieces of furniture, all thrown around and broken. During our exploring, we heard shuffling outside the shed. We did not think much of it as we kept exploring the shed. Sometime later, we heard a light tapping sound on the glass. We were still not afraid, because we knew the shed was abandoned. Either way, we were kinda scared, so we decided to leave and ride back to the car. When we reached the car, we took our sleeping bags and tents, and started setting everything up. By this time, the sun was already setting, so it was getting dark fairly quick. When we finished the tents, we cracked open a few drinks and looked at the stars. About an hour later, as we were talking, we heard loud footsteps coming towards the tent. I looked around, but could not see anyone. "Hello? Is anyone there?" I asked. There was no answer. At this point, I was freaking out, so I put on my phone flashlight. The light illuminated the silhouette of a man standing 10 feet away from my friend and I. I gestured towards my friend to be ready to run. as I saw a blade in the man's hand. When I looked at my friend again, we both knew it was time to run, as we bolted into the trees, disappearing into the darkness. The man started chasing after us and screaming, but since we were a lot faster, we were able to escape the man and get back to the car. At the car, we quickly drove home and ended our stargazing early. Later that same night on the news, we heard of a murder that happened in the exact same area that we were in. It was the first day of spring break, Friday, March 26th. I had a crush on this girl named Emma from school, so when my friends told me that she was having a party that same night, I was down to go. I asked my friends if they wanted to come with me, but both of them declined and said that they had soccer practice. Since I knew tonight would be the night that I wanted to ask Emma out on the date, I decided to go to the party alone. So when it turned 8 o'clock, I started walking towards her house. By this time, the sun had already set, but it was very hot outside. When I got closer to her house, I could hear faint music coming from her backyard. I also could not help but shake the feeling of somebody watching me. I shivered as I quickly turned my head around. Nobody was there, so I decided to continue towards Emma's house. When I arrived, I entered her house and started looking around for anybody that I knew. After a little while, I found one of my old friends named Jack. I told him about my plan, and he told me to go talk to her now. Jack also told me that she was near the pool. As I walked through the crowd of people towards the pool, something caught my eyes. From the corner of my eyes, I could see a man staring at me. He was in the crowd of people at the party. The man looked to be in his 40s with white hair. This party was for teenagers only, so I knew something was wrong. I just ignored the man and continued walking towards the pool. Once I looked back, the man was a lot closer now. He was basically almost in front of me. Then I heard him say, "Hello?" I responded with a quiet hello. He told me that he is friends with one of the kids at the party. At this point, I knew this man was lying, because I could see it on his face. He had a very weird smile on his face. I knew I had to lead him away from the party, since he looked creepy. I asked him to follow me outside for a second, so that I could ask him a question. When we left the house, he seemed very angry, so I started running home. That was when the man started chasing me at full speed. I did not stop until I was at my house. Inside, I called the police, and they arrived in a matter of minutes. I gave them a description of the man, and they were able to catch him by the end of the night. The next day, everybody at the party knew about me saving the day, including Emma. In a way, I got lucky to have survived without being injured. I also ended up getting Emma's number. No one really knows the man's real intention for coming to the party, but one thing is for sure, this experience scarred me for the rest of my life.